Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Going to call the meeting to order. Mark, do you want to lead us in an invocation, please?
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for today, and we thank you for these individuals that came out tonight, and thank you for those that are serving our community, and we pray for them and their decisions. We pray that not only them, but us as staff always have our community in mind when we make decisions, and may they be the best for us. Thank you for the folks in attendance tonight, and we also thank you for their interest in our community. We pray a special blessing on our country. We pray that folks will stay well and COVID leaves and we don't have to fight that battle anymore. We just lift that up to you. Be with us always. In Christ's name, amen.
Today we have visitors' remarks from Manuel Abrego. If you'd like to come up for 5 minutes, please. Thank you for being here today.
So most of us have gone through our system, graduated from here from Los Fresnos. Well, we have something very unique. I don't think it's ever happened in Los Fresnos. We have 3 siblings that the last one will graduate, and the other 2 have already graduated, valedictorian from their respective classes. It's 2013, 2015, and 2021. And I don't know, but maybe in South Texas, as far as I'm concerned. To top it off, Los Fresnos High School is the largest high school in the Rio Grande Valley. The graduating class, I understand, is going to be a little over 900. And that's because we haven't split into other high schools. And to just come out number 1 is awesome. These young ladies, it's amazing, the 3 sisters. And I might add that they have a 4th one, their baby sister, who is also in high school and is a junior. Now, most of us might not know this, but we also know the parents and the grandparents. The parents is Dr. Stephanie Herrera Garcia is the mom, and Mr. Roy Garcia is the dad. And this is just what they've done is amazing, what these kids have done. Also, I'll mention the Roy's parents. We have Anita Garcia, who was a paraprofessional at her school and graduated retired from Los Fresnos School District. And Mr. Frank Garcia, who graduated in 1955. Frank also served as a board member. And if you had a fajita taco during the rodeos, that man is the one that usually cooks the fajita. He volunteers, he's a lion, he's 80-something years old, and just serving her and still serving. It's awesome. And then Stephanie's parents, we have Kay Herrera, who was an elementary teacher and retired from Los Fresnos many, many years. And we have our very own, Mr. James Herrera. And James came from Bandera, Texas. He graduated from high school and went to Southwest Texas State and on a scholarship to play tennis. I don't know if you all knew that. a real quiet man. He doesn't say very much. He doesn't glow, but this is the grandparent of these three girls. He also served in the school board, you know. And now he's still serving as a council member here. So I think that I just found out all this about 5 or 6 days ago, Mayor, and it's awesome, and they're still serving. They're leaders in our community. These young ladies, matter of fact, I understand the oldest one, Alexis, will graduate or have just graduated from UT Austin as a doctor, and is going to work in Portland, Oregon, I understand. But I just wanted to bring this up, and I wanted to be in the minutes, and maybe somewhere along the line, maybe the city can do some kind of proclamation. Stephanie went to the system, and I might add that Stephanie in 1985 was also salutatory and was second in her class. So I think it's history in the making. We'll probably, in our lifetime, we won't see three siblings go through this. But James, thank you, and God bless you for everything you've done for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abrego. James, I want whatever is in your water system so I can drink that too, because it seems like there's been a lot of success. No, thank you very much. That was some kind words that we had today. Thank you, Mr. Abrego. So the time is now 6:06. We got public hearing on the annexation of A 12.145 acre tract of land out of Tract 45 Subdivision F of Paderes Tract Subdivision in Share 19. Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, said 12.145 acre tract, also being out of a certain 747.1 acre tract of land described in deed record in volume 22333, page 291 of the official record of the Cameron County, Texas, location on the east side of the city limits on the south side of Highway 100. Public hearing is open at this time. At this time, public hearing, if there's no questions or comments, we'll go ahead. Mark, you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. It's right behind us, Phase 4 of the Feather Ridge development. Phase 1 and 2 are complete. They're in the process of working on the infrastructure of Phase 3, and this will be Phase 4. So just to the south. I think it runs all the way to the drainage ditch that's kind of behind us here.
Are they gonna, I guess, the infrastructure, they're gonna cover everything? Water, sewer?
Yes. Before we sign off on final plats, they have to complete all that stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abrego. Any other, anything else in regards to public hearing? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:08. Moving on to consent agenda. We have a total of 9 consent agenda items. Do any of the board members have any questions in regards to any of the 9 consent agenda items?
I move that the consent agenda be approved as stated.
I second.
Okay, motion has been made. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries on the consent agenda items 1 through 9. Moving on to action items. Action item number 1, consideration and action to approve a service agreement for the 2021 Cowboy Cook-Off. I believe we have some speakers here in regards to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the City Council. You all see us every year for the rodeo, and you see us for the cook-off. Of course, last year we didn't have either one, and this year we didn't have the rodeo, but we're having a cook-off again this year. It's the Halloween weekend on the 28th and 29th. We're trying to make something else happen here with the grounds that we have. We're looking forward to it, and we appreciate you all's participation the last couple of years. We'd like to continue the same tradition that we've had in the past and see if we can keep this thing going. It's something different. We have the grounds, we need to use them, and it's a way for some people to get involved and do a few things. We're gonna have activities, and those will all come out later at a later date. Be sure representing the road community, myself and George. It's a good event. It's a clean event for families to come out and have a good time. And by the way, we're gonna need a few judges, so you guys better get hungry. It's fun. These guys are professional cooks. They know what they're doing, and we have a good time. So that's really all I have to say. We appreciate your help in the past, and hopefully you can continue to support us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for having us. We really appreciate it. Like Gary said, this will be our third annual Cowboy Cook-Off. Couple of quick things, just to remind you, we will follow all COVID-19 protocols, federal, state, local, whatever that might be in October. Our end goals for this cook-off, of course, is to raise money for scholarships. The Rodeo Scholarship Committee just met last week, and I'm proud to say that we have awarded 12 $1,000 scholarships. So this cook-off helps in that process. So we really appreciate anything that you guys can do for our cook-off. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion from any of the board members?
I'll
Or
move
questions?
that we give $1,500 to the Cowboy Cook-Off.
Second? I second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries to approve action item number 1. Moving on to action item number 2. Consideration and action to approve payment in lieu of land for park dedication for the Encino Crossing subdivision. And it looks like we have some public remarks in regards to action item number 2. Would John like to speak, or Mr. Guerrero?
I figured I'd summarize first. It is the development that is
Okay.
across the street. And in our policy, the policy states that as property is brought in and developed, 10% would be set aside for parks. At some point, you don't want any more parks or don't need them at this moment. And so there's a provision in the policy where you calculate the land value and they donate the 10% in cash value. And what the city does then keeps that separate, and we add playgrounds, add swing sets, could be walking trails, just whatever the council would decide at some future date. I picture that, as they continue the development, because that's only a really small piece of what they have over there. As that continues to develop, maybe the next piece we could do a pocket park where part of the land is donated, and then we have some funds to develop that park. But that's just an idea. It can be used however.
Thank you, Mark. Before the speakers come up, do any of the board members have any questions in regards to action item number 2? Any questions, comments, or concerns?
I move that we approve as stated.
I second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do as well. Motion carries to approve action item number 2. Action item number 3, consideration and action to approve the first reading of ordinance 521-20 to annex territory to the city of Los Fresnos and extending the boundary limits of said city. Is there any questions or comments in regards to this action item? I'm sorry, what was that, Mr. Munoz? I couldn't hear you. Mr. Munoz, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? I guess not. Juan, did you ask something? I didn't hear you.
I had asked Mark if this was the one fire within 100, but no, he said it is this one, so. Yeah, we got.
The one out there. If we have no questions at this time, is there any motions that any other members would like to make?
I'll make a motion to consider the action to approve reading ordinance 521.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do the same as well. Motion carries. Action item number 3 has been approved. Moving on to action item number 4, discussion of possible uses of funding for the American Rescue Plan. Mark, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. This is good news. As you know, I think this is the third or fourth round of funding that the federal government has given out or going to give out, and they do it according to population. And we are slated to receive $1,708,771, and it's a pretty sizable amount. I don't know who's going to pay for it, but that's not my job today. Our job is we receive those, and there's criteria that I laid out in your packet, and many of them we really don't fit our situation. As you know, as a city, we went through COVID, and our sales tax continued to go out the roof, which is very good for our businesses. Property tax, we've always kept the same property tax rate for about 16 years, so that didn't change. So we can't access it because of lost revenue. If we had lost revenue, we could utilize it to replace some. Gets down into where I see some decisions that I would like to bring to y'all at a next meeting is water, the basics, water, sewer, and drainage. They have broadband as well. That's a huge thing. We could do that in especially connectivity between this facility and the police department, and police department, the library, and library to public works, and even maybe the parks, and then have some public usage where people could access. We couldn't have free access for everyone because you couldn't sustain that, but that's an option as well. Two things that, I'll go to three main that I see is water. We have two ground storage tanks. One of them's about 126,000 gallons and the other one's 78,000 gallons. They need to be replaced. That wasn't in the scope of work on the water plant expansion, but it's something that TCEQ has informed us that we need to do. So that probably is a high priority as we go forward. So I'll get prices on that. If you'll remember, we did our CBDG grant that comes every 2 years on a cycle. We authorized to start replacing some sewer lines that were put in the 50s. And so that's there, but if you'll recall, we only did about 6 of them, and then there's no more money, so we just did enough for the grant, so we could do additional of those lines, and I think that's also very important as well with that money. And the last thing is, of course, drainage. We've applied for several grants and have not been funded yet. We continue to apply for those. If you'll recall, one of them was right along Whipple Road. The other one was Valle Alto itself. And those two, and it's just an engineer's estimate, but about $700,000 for those two projects. I think that's a high estimate, but I'd rather be high than tell you something low and then it's way more than that. The other one was Resaca Escondida, the Resaca that is on the south side of the nature park, between the nature park and East Resaca Drive and that development there. As you know, there's no real drainage in, and there's no real fresh water to come in except by rainwater. So that's an important project, and that's estimated right at $200,000. The other piece that we did for drainage is to just do a drainage inventory, and the city had a little piece that we did back in 2008, 2009 that looks at the area from the railroad tracks to probably Community Park and from the north to the south. We have a lot of other drainage. Much of it is with TxDOT, and so is do a complete drainage inventory study and have a master plan that includes what TxDOT owns, what Cameron County Drainage District #1 owns as far as the ditches, and what we own and manage. And then it also helps us to have a roadmap for drainage in the future. That can be anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000, depending on what is involved and how detailed we get. Of course, we would get proposals to do that. So there's a lot of need out there. I just wanted to throw those so that you could be thinking about those. Some people are wanting to keep money in-house with the city if they can. That's not my goal. My goal is our basic infrastructure, water, sewer, drainage, and then maybe a little bit of broadband to do that. And it's not an action item tonight. I just wanted to fill you in information. It's good that we have some money. One of the things too is the legislative session that's going now. Myself and Desi Martinez have applied, and y'all signed, y'all approved it, is it's called a rider that goes in with the finance plan for the state of Texas, and we requested $750,000 for the nature park. We believe that has a very good shot to be approved in the next 30 days before the session ends. If it does, then maybe we can do the drainage at Resaca Escondida with that money, because that's part of what we planned for, and then it frees up some of this. So I know it's a lot of stuff, a lot of working parts, but if we got that money, it would be awesome, because we could do the drainage there and then also do some other improvements to the nature park, because that $750,000 would be dedicated to it. But it would play into this if we were able to receive that. I think that's all, but I'm open to questions.
Also on the same token, Mark, I would want to bring some ideas. I don't think if it's a good idea or not, but so we can make it like, for example, we're May, June. necessarily make it May or June and July, because whenever the water bill issue is, for example, day 20 and they come and pay 21, they pay $35 or something like that for overdue. And my idea is that if we can make it for 2 months for people that have their past due, allow them to, for the COVID or whatever reason, allow them not to pay those $35 and we can remove them from that account. And that's just an idea that I'm bringing up to the board and to everybody else.
You're talking about,
Not many people,
right,
not many people go over the day, but whoever does, we can say, we're gonna allow you not to pay this one because of the COVID that was going on, and we're gonna support you this time, but it's only a one-time deal. So,
you're talking about the penalties for the water bill.
that's correct, that's correct.
Yeah, and if you'll recall, we did that in March, April, and May as well, during the kind of height of COVID. But yes, that can be, not sure if it could be attached to this, but we could also do that separate if that was a wish of the council, because it doesn't amount to a lot of money, but it amounts to a lot of money to the folks that are having to pay it because they're already behind and already, they just get worse behind by paying that, so I understand.
When is the deadline when are you getting the funds and to spend them?
They keep saying any time and up to 2 years.
Will there be a public hearing on how to spend these funds?
I don't think you have to have a public hearing, but that's the, wishes of the council, whatever they would want. It would have to be an action item, so of course, anybody could give input at that. But we have not received the directive from the funding agency that's going to be doing this hours yet. And so, but the way the bill's written is that it has some basic guidelines and then a deadline in the future. And I think it's 2024, if I recall. But like I said, we're researching, trying to get information. The big cities will get their money a different way than the small cities. Don't know why they're doing it that way, but it's done that way pretty regularly. So we have to wait until they issue those guidelines.
Well, it's good to know that there's funds coming and there's a lot of important items, like you said, water, sewage, a lot of infrastructure that we can look at, and we'll take recommendations from what you feel like is most important, and then we can go from there.
And I do think it's a good idea. We, put it as a public hearing and get information from the public.
Yeah, get some public opinions out there to come out here and.
We'll probably get very variety, and maybe some that don't fit the requirements, but that's okay, because then we can use this funds to do those things, and then maybe it frees money in our regular budget to do some of the other things that might come up that don't qualify.
That sounds like.
Is there gonna be any timeline to this? Because if there is, we go the public hearing way, how long, is it gonna be between public hearings, and is that gonna cut into the time that we need?
We can have a public hearing like the meeting, and then discuss it that night, and then
So it
we
will
have
only be one
we have
public
plenty
hearing?
of time.
Just one public hearing?
It's not required to have any. That's up to you.
I guess depending on demand or
So if
what.
it's not required, why do it? But just listen to public opinion,
I
give
guess
them the time to speak like we normally do. In the interest of time.
I mean, it's always good to get the public's idea, what their
Well,
opinions
they-
are,
they-
just so we
they aren't
can
being
consider
behind
them.
it, right. they can speak.
Of course.
I have a comment. I don't know how to do this, but our restaurants are just being crunched. First the COVID and now this construction. You know, I tried to get the Mario's to get a to-go order, and it was an ordeal to get in that place. And I had to go across an empty lot and cross a ditch, put my truck in four-wheel drive, because there's no way to get to it if you're coming from this part of town going that way. You can't get to Mario's. And that just, it changes all the time, and our businesses are really, really being crunched. And I know you're trying, Mark, and, but our restaurants are just being hurt so bad. I really feel for them.
I think what would be good is maybe we can put that on a meeting coming up where we can discuss a little bit further and put that topic out there. Since it's not on today's meeting agenda, we can maybe put it on the next. We are working on it behind the scenes, but yeah, if you want to do a special meeting, we can do that as well.
I can make some comments at the end of the meeting under my report, because I put text Highway 100 project, so it fits under there, and I will address some of those things, and then y'all can decide if there needs to be more discussion from that.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any other questions or comments in regards to the discussion we were having about the American Rescue Plan? The American Rescue Plan, action item number 4. Any other questions or comments? All right, I move that we acknowledge it, and nothing further. Action item number 5, consideration and action to move the regular council meeting to the second Tuesday of the month at 12 noon, or move the regular council meeting to the second Saturday of the month at 12 noon. Questions or comments in regards to that?
I have some questions. First of all, why are we doing that?
I believe Mr. Munoz has requested that to be on the agenda item because of his work schedule, I believe.
Why are we doing this, Mr. Munoz? Why do you want to make a change?
Oh, I brought it up to the board because I wanted to ask the board if we can change some meetings to 12 o'clock during the day, because sometimes it's impossible for me to make it at 6 o'clock. And I want to be here on the meetings, I want to be present, I don't want to be on the computer. And I would love to be here every meeting that we have, so this is the reason why I'm doing it. But like I said, I'm bringing it up to the board, and the board decides whether they want to allow it or don't.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that when we first got these positions, we knew what day and time we were going to be having the meetings, and we didn't have a problem with it when we first got elected. The other thing is, I would have a problem with having the meeting on those days, because Tuesdays and Saturdays is when my wife has dialysis. That's a life and death situation. She has to have it. And usually every Tuesday and Saturday, my time from 9 till about 3 o'clock is for her. So there's no way that I would be able to attend either one of those two meetings. So it's a problem for me.
Yeah, myself as well. I work in a bank, so a lot of times that's time I'm working. So
the other thing is, you know, the public, there's a lot of working public that wouldn't be able to attend the meetings, and they are open meetings. So
Yes, it's like I said, I brought it up to the board to decide. You know, you can make any decision you want, advice, and I'm not forcing you to make any decision you don't like, but I thought I'd bring it up to the board, and the board decides, well, if they want to allow it, and they allow it, fine. If they don't allow it, I'm great with it.
I'd like to make a motion that we keep the meetings on the same date and time, which is Tuesdays, second Tuesday of the month at 7 or 6 p.m.
And I second that.
But how can you make a motion on an action item that's not even, we have to make a motion on this and then vote this down. If we vote this down, then we keep the regular meetings. Otherwise, you'd be making a motion on an action item that's not part of the agenda.
Well, I'm rewording the motion.
I guess Mr. Narvaez's motion is that we do not approve action item number 5, and he made a motion and I made a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
What are we voting on here?
We're moving on not approving action item number 5 to change the meeting times. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those who oppose?
Nay.
Mr. Ortiz, I didn't get your decision. I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you because you're not on the microphone.
I'm for leaving. They are.
Okay, and Mr. Herrera, what was your decision? I didn't hear yours.
I voted for the motion.
For the motion? To keep the time? Okay, so 4-2, motion carries that we do not approve the meeting time change. Action item number 6, consideration and action to approve proposed charter amendments. Mark, can you elaborate this? I saw the attachment. I wasn't really sure what.
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to. In your notes, you see the charter committee was formed and appointed back early 2020, I believe, and consisted of Enrique Juarez, Manuel Abrego, Manuel Cruz, James Herrera, and Kenneth Walcott. And we had several meetings early on, and then COVID hit, and we did not meet for quite a while. And then we started that back up, and there was some items that different people had brought up over time that they felt were important to address. The committee looked at the whole charter, but picked out these 7 things that they think that they are proposing to give to you and asking you to approve them to put on the ballot for the November election. And so if you can approve one of them, all of them, none of them, some of them, that's the council decision. And so I don't know how you would want to go, but let me try to explain, and I'll just go one by one, and I'll try to explain them so that you have an understanding of what the charter committee's goal was when they talked about it. The first one is has to do with years of service. And so in Article 2, Section 1, it talks about composition of the council of the existing charter, and then we would remove the words each in the same position on the city council as a council person, and then we would insert that next paragraph there. And one of the questions is it's not clear if I was in place 1 and my time is up in place 1, well, maybe I go and run in place 4. The charter as it exists didn't really clarify that very well. It didn't say it, so we assumed since it didn't say it, is allowed. So the charter committee thought it would be good to have it in black and white so there would be no question. So the first part of it is a council member that has completed 3 full consecutive terms of 3 years in one position or place, because we do place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is eligible to run for another position or place in the next regular general election after sitting out 1 year. So if I'm elected to say place 4 and I've served 3 terms or 9 years, I can't run when my term is over. the next year, I could run for another open spot. And the reason, the thought process is just, you get out, let somebody have another opportunity, but then that person could serve again. Then the next statement would be, a mayor that has completed 3 full consecutive terms of 3 years is eligible to run for a council member position in the next general election after sitting out a year. And so they thought keeping them the same as a council member, set out 1 year, and that way it's not confusing for one and not the other. So both of them would be, you set out a year. The next one is a council
Mark,
member.
on that question, would the mayor be able to run for mayor again after a year? Or would he have to run for a different position?
A different position, only the mayor. Once you serve 3 terms of mayor, 9 years, you couldn't run for mayor again. You could run for another place on the council, but not mayor.
After a year?
After a year, you could run for a place on the
You
council.
can't run for mayor after the year because the new mayor's elected for 3 years.
Correct.
So you can't do it.
But even after that first term, if you ran, you couldn't run if you had already done your 3 terms, 3 full terms. Now, if you'd only served 2 and you didn't, then you could come back and serve another one. A council member is eligible to run for mayor immediately at any time, which you see that all over the country. A council member is serving and they decide they want to run for mayor, and so they vacate their position and run for mayor. So we just put it in black and white so it could, there wouldn't be any question. And then also we wanted to insert the language, the time served as a council member is separate from the time served as a mayor, because they're very different roles, responsibilities. It a lot the same, but they're very different. So the 3 terms as a mayor doesn't count as 3 terms as a councilman. So that's the first change. And by the way, each one of these you can't list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like we did. We did that so we could refer to it as we're discussing, but on the ballot, it would just be 1, 2, 3. It would be each one, and you would vote on one, and the residents have the option of approving some and not approving others, so it's not all or none. If you'll recall this last election in May, Brownsville did a charter amendment. They went to some term limits like we already have here.
So basically, by voting for this would go to our election so that our citizens can vote for
Correct.
or against these proposed items.
Correct.
Understood.
Mark, this isn't related to the changes, but it is related to the committee. I looked at the names and I noticed that Mr. Herrera is a member of that committee, and as a council member, I believe that might be a conflict of interest, and I think you need to check our ordinances to see whether or not it is. And if it is, I don't think he should be on there.
Yeah, it is not a conflict. In fact,
How can it not be?
it's because it's only a recommendation. The power still rests with this board here.
But still, there's an influence there.
It's
Because he's gonna have input into something that's affecting him and the rest of us, or whoever's elected to this position, and I don't think that any council member should serve on that committee
You
where
appointed
there's
me, Mayor.
changes to bylaws or anything like that, or things that will affect the council. It's unfair, and I don't think it's right.
You appointed him back when that was done, so you and well as the other council members
Well,
agreed to.
like I say, I think we need to do something to avoid this from happening again.
That's always up to you as a body to see who serves, and at that time, the body picked these gentlemen and, to serve. So he didn't just show up to say, I want to be on this. He was appointed.
Well, maybe you can put it as an agenda item next time.
It was, sir.
It was an agenda item, I remember, and we all voted, and it was unanimous.
Yes, sir.
When was that?
Wasn't a problem then, shouldn't be a problem now.
Correct. I can go back and look, but it was an
Go
action
ahead and
item.
look.
I will do that, sir. Ready for move to? Number 2? I don't know how y'all want to do this.
I get the idea. I've read them before, but now that you've put the first one in context for myself, I understand, what this is going to. Okay. So you clarified it by doing the first one.
Go to number 2. It's Article 2, Section 203, Council Qualifications, subsection G of the existing city charter be amended by removing. We would remove this statement. If the council determines that any member of the council has ceased to possess any of these qualifications set forth in that section 2.03, then that member shall immediately forfeit their office and have their office declared forfeited and vacant by the city council. So that would go away. And then we would insert, if any 2 members have proof a member of the council has ceased to possess any of the qualifications set forth in section 2.03 or violated section 2.04 or any other section of the charter, they can request in writing to the city secretary for an action item to be placed on the next regular council meeting. Evidence must be presented from both sides with a vote to determine corrective action, if any, to be taken. Evidence for both sides will be presented and voted upon by the council and mayor with a majority vote. And the reason why this came up that way is there was a clause in there that says that if you cease to possess any of these qualifications, and one of them's living in town, so I'll use that. And there was no mechanism to put forth of how to go about that. So they wanted to have a mechanism that shows this is what we do in those cases. Another case, no, that's all for that one. But the words proof is critical. If any 2 members have proof, just so you know, it started off with if any 2 members feel that, and I just can't feel it, I need to have some proof because the charter committee also looked at, I think it was Donna? Was it Donna or Farr? Mercedes? Okay, yeah, it was Mercedes. They actually in a lawsuit because some council members went to try to remove another, not for any reason except they're warring with one another. They didn't have proof. So who then pays is because you're covered with insurance as long as you're acting in good faith. But if you just go out there and you're trying to slander someone, well, then you can be personally liable as well. So anyway, that's why the committee decided to use the word proof. And so I've got proof. I got pictures. Or I'm in your house that's in Bayview, and there's no doubt that you live in Bayview. You do not live in Los Fresnos. Well, then I could, or a council member could bring that proof, whatever that is, and say this is, we need to take action on that. The person that they're charging against can also give information that that's not true. That's their right as well. Any questions? Article 3, Section 2.04, forfeiture of office of the existing city charter be amending by adding subsection G. Right now, there's no G, so we would add G that says a council or mayor, and it should be council member, I'm sorry. a council member or mayor can be removed from office by majority vote for incompetency, official misconduct, or intoxication. And you say, well, how does that prove? Go up the one just above it. You prove it by, you bring the proof and you do that. There could be a reason that needs to do, health reasons, several.
Dementia, Alzheimer's, maybe,
Sure.
yeah.
And it's something that you would hope that person would recognize and, and I need to remove, but sometimes that does not happen, unfortunately. And so this gives you as a board a mechanism to work through that in a judicial manner and not, hopefully, peacefully and do it correctly.
What if your proof is, for example, in the topic of incompetency, or what does that word say?
Incompetency.
There we go. For example, if somebody has dementia, Alzheimer's, we're not doctors. We can only make an observation. So would we subsequent that person to go to their doctor and get a letter to say that they are,
You could do that.
I don't know.
That gets hard, and you would hope that if somebody brought it up, that the person or the family would go, yeah.
It would just be hoping. Okay, because proof is a doctor's letter, and
Right.
we're not doctors. We can only make observations. Alrighty.
Yeah, I think we need to be very careful about that one.
Incompetence, I think needs
Because
to
the
be
mentally ill have a lot of rights.
expanded,
Y'all keep talking at the same time, so.
needs to be expanded to make it more clear. Becomes incompetent by reason of illness, or, to make it,
I can't remember if there was a discussion about that, but I think it was that it really didn't matter how that incompetency happened if I'm not able to serve, whether it's because I get dementia or I had an accident and that caused some problems.
became disabled.
You hate it either way, but irregardless, I don't think irregardless is the right word. Regardless, you probably shouldn't be serving if it happened because of I'm getting old or because I had an accident and no longer have all of my facilities.
I guess my only concern, it's a very vague word, and it just means the inability to do something successfully in altitude. So it kind of very broad, but I mean, that would be the only thing I would be concerned about. It's a very broad statement.
Mark, those kind of incapacities have to be proven before any kind of action can be taken. Usually, if an individual has dementia or has Alzheimer's, it's wise for that person to have a guardian to act on his behalf, and that person would be the person responsible for taking action of that kind of nature. But if that's not happening, the individual probably is not going to say, "Hey, I've got dementia" or "I've got Alzheimer's." They won't know it, and they're not going to step down on their own. They're not able to reason. So usually it would be the guardian that would make that decision, a legal guardian.
Right, but you're right, they usually won't if they don't want to believe that about themselves. So that's why this mechanism needs to be in place, because it could be that it's a very serious, y'all make tough decisions and a lot of responsibility. And so the other 5 of you need to be sure that one is competent and able to process that information, and so that's the reason why that was there, and it ties up with number 2.
And when a situation like that happens, do we put it on an agenda item, or do we have a private meeting on that topic? If that was to be something that happens in the future.
I,
Yeah, assuming it passes the election, and I guess it will be something that, like, how do we determine it? Do we meet?
it goes up to Article 3, which 2 or more could say to the city secretary in writing, I wish this to be a agenda item to be acted on. I would hope that if I'm here, you would come to me and say, can we go to this person or go to the mayor, or a couple of you go and visit with that person first, especially if it's known. Most of the time it's known and it's, people understand it, and try that way. I think you always do that first. But when those things have not occurred or been positive outcome, well, then you have another avenue.
Understood. Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Mayor, we spent a lot of time on this issue, and we could not come up with a clear-cut description that covers everything. So, you know, this is the best we could come up with, but it was considerable. Most of our time spent on this one item.
That one item. And you know what? They're very good points, and I'm listening to everything. It's just when I hear that word right there, just there's so many things that can come to mind. But I understand the question.
Number 4?
Yes, sir.
It's Article 2, Section 207, vacancies in the city council. Hal Field of the existing city charter be amended by removing, and if you're okay with me not reading all that, that whole section, that whole paragraph will be removed. Because when we developed the charter, I was around then, and I know you were involved. Polo, you were involved, and Juan, I don't remember if you were on there before or after, but anyway, when that was originally done, the charter committee took those verbiage straight out of Texas state law. Well, what happens is they go to Austin every 2 years, and that changes. So what the committee decided, instead of having all of that there, just drop down below that paragraph and say, it'll now state, if a vacancy occurs in the office of mayor or the city council, election laws as set out in the Texas Election Code as amended shall be applicable to and control all such elections. And so we follow the state election law anyway, so instead of having to change your charter every time the state legislature changes rules and timing, and has a lot to do with timing, which is what we came into this last time. And so just follow the state law. Makes it simple. I think that one was the easiest one probably, right?
Yeah, that one seems pretty easy.
Number 5, Section 12.03, removal and vacancies of the city charter be amended by inserting, a board member shall forfeit their office if they have failed to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings or 6 meetings in any calendar year without being excused by the council. And so where this came up is, this already exists for you as a council. If say one misses 3 consecutive meetings or 6 in a calendar year and doesn't come and ask for an excuse, hey, this is why I was gone, you as a body need to take action on that excuse to validate that or not. There was no mechanism for our planning and zoning board, our CDC board, and so that same language was taken from you as a council member and put on those boards as well. And I think it's a good thing for those boards that know it's serious, that, you know, if I'm gonna commit to planning and zoning, I know that the third Monday, I need to wipe my calendar for the third Monday. If it's the CDC board, it's the first Monday of the month. And so a little bit of this, I think will go, and you'll have, you want a full board when you make decisions. Y'all had to do one, if you'll recall, on a variance, and I think you made a good decision to send it back
Send it
to them
back.
to a full board, and I think they got the message, because we've been having a packed house since then on that board. And it was just a simple thing you did is, hey, you know what? Send it back to those folks, since there was only a partial number of them. And so I think this will just help.
Thank you.
Number 6, Article 13, Section 1309, power of recall of the city charter amended by removing, and I'm going to explain it. The way, when the charter was done, it was really, there's 2 ways to do it, and the charter was written with half of one way and half of another way, and it doesn't work that way. And so we're fixing that. And let me explain to you. There's 2 ways to do a recall. Either you do by the number of registered voters. You call up the county elections officer and say, how many people are eligible to vote in the city of Los Fresnos? And they say that there's 2,000. And so in this case, the way the charter reads, 2,000, you would have to get 25% of signatures, which would be 500. Did I do my math right? Yep. Math guys. So you would have to get 500 signatures. That's a lot of signatures. If you've never gone to door knocking, that's a lot. Most cities, if you're doing the number of registered voters, use 10%. So 10% of 2,000 would be 200. You can see the difference. Still difficult, but you can do that to do a recall election. The other way to do it is you go to the number of votes cast in the last election. So our last election was November. And so if you take the number of people that cast votes then, let's say it's 1,000, if you had it 10%, that would only be 100. But what cities do is, if you do those cast in the last election, you have to do 25%, because you never have all of the registered voters vote. So that's usually 25%. So you see what we did, we took 25% if it's the number of people voted in the election, but put it with the number of registered, and it made a recall basically pretty difficult for your citizens to be able to do that. I know as an elected one, you don't want that to happen, but what people do is the registered voters, the number of registered voters in your community, 10% takes a recall. Or the number of people that voted in the last election takes 25%. The charter committee went with the number of registered voters and 10%, because that's a constant number. Give you a good example is this last election was a presidential election. So we probably had 2 to 3 times the number of votes cast than the year before. So if you happen to have been in that election and there's a recall and it was a presidential election, you have to get 2 to 3 times the number of signatures than the one the year before when there wasn't a presidential election and there was only 400 votes cast. So the charter committee felt that it was, let's do something constant, which is the number of registered voters, and do it at 10%. Did I explain that right?
Is that very similar to what's happening in California with the governor, kind of the votes and stuff for the recall?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
That makes sense, or I hope it made sense. Right, it makes it easier. Registered voters, 10%. Number 7 is Article 2, Section 2.15, financial loss by elected officials, cities. That's the section that's under there. Compensation of the existing city charter be amended by removing, and you would remove this quote, compensation of members of the city council shall be determined by an affirmative vote of all members of the council by ordinance, but no increase in such compensation shall take effect until commencement of the terms of any council member elected or reelected at the next regular election. And inserting, there will be no compensation of members of the city council. So what that means is tonight you could vote to let's say you want to give yourselves $200 a meeting. You could vote that by an ordinance and put in an ordinance. However, none of it would be effective until you ran for reelection. And so this next year, the two that come up for election, those elected would then get the 200. And then the next year, either they got elected or reelected, they would get the 200. And then 3 years from now, it would be that way. What it does is it puts it to where you can't vote yourself a raise. You can vote other people a raise or yourself if you happen to get reelected. The committee felt that the abuse, I think I'll say this right, the abuse of some boards or have as much as $500 a meeting, and then they're calling all these special meetings. And so there's meetings and probably don't really abused, and is that kind of where that came from?
Neighboring, water district number 6, drainage district number 1, we're paying board members hundreds of dollars. Just close the door.
And that was the committee's recommendation, just close that door. You don't have to worry about that. If you think you need to be compensated, probably should run for a different board that would happen, and not the city.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody want to make a motion? Is there a motion?
I move that we select all 7 items to be placed on the next election for the citizens to vote on.
Number 7, I'm a little confused because of that first line that says financial loss by elected officials. I take it to mean that if I lose money, let's say, if I'm working, but I'm missing out salary by coming to a meeting, I would consider that financial loss. So I request to be reimbursed or compensated because I lost money by not going to work because I had to be at this meeting. And you mentioned something about giving ourselves a raise or a fee for attending the meetings, which are 2 different cats.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're meaning, but do
To
you
be
understand?
financially paid, in other words, you made reference to the way that you put it, we cannot increase our salary or our fee for being a member of this body.
Okay, let me back up. Where it says Article 2, Section 2.19, 015, financial loss by elected officials. That's the heading that is under that. That isn't, all that is a heading above that. And I'd have to look at I don't have the full charter here, but in that, you still, a council member always gets reimbursed for, if you go to a workshop and it's for the city, you get reimbursed mileage. If you fly somewhere to do it, we would fly you to do it. You would get per diem for meals. If you had to stay overnight in a motel, you get reimbursed for any expenses that you would do. What this is talking about is compensation for serving on the council.
Yeah, I guess what Mr. Ortiz meant, like for example, me, I ask a day off and I lose like 250, and then I guess that's what you was meaning on the reimbursement for the council members.
Yeah,
That's a different nature. Yeah.
yeah, your job is not a reimbursable city expense.
The bottom line is nobody will be paid to serve in Los Fresnos.
Correct. If this change was to occur, you would get reimbursed for actual expenditures that you make while serving.
If you spend money on behalf of the city, that's reimbursed.
Guess what he meant is if you travel to an event that the city wants you to go to, they'll reimburse you if you spend any expenses.
Correct.
But if you go to your neighbors and you give them a basket of candy or something like that, on behalf, the city, I don't think that, we don't reimburse that, I guess.
Correct.
So we had a motion made by Mr. Lopez to approve action item number 6.
Second?
Mr. Herrera has seconded that. Motion has been made to approve action item number 6. All those in favor, can you signify by saying aye or raising your hand?
Aye.
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 All those who oppose, do the same. And motion carries to approve action item number 6. Mark?
Jackie, am I remembering correctly? We put this now in the ordinance?
When we order the election?
That's right. When we order the election for this coming November, it will be, besides the places that are up for election, this will be as in that order as well.
Jackie, for the record, I wanted noted that Mr. Herrera voted while serving on that committee, and I don't think he should have voted on the recommendations that he himself made.
Thank you. Moving on to G, acknowledgement of city managers' reports.
Since the question was with TxDOT, let me go straight to it.
Thank you.
I sent y'all a message that I developed a pretty extensive options to TxDOT's traffic plan. It looks like they're only going to take 2 of them. The southbound lanes, if you'll see, there's a lot of empty space where they just got barricades. So they're going to be 2 lanes going towards the south, but still only 1 lane because they said they can't fit any more lanes. I have challenged that because they say they have to have 11 feet per lane and then room for the barrels to go between driving lanes. And what I said is they're going so slow that you could put 3 in. I was concerned about the one coming to the island. That's the one that we're having extremely trouble with. And it's only 29 feet. I said, fine, let's do 10 feet lane going towards the expressway and a 9 and a 10 coming this way. And people will make it. They'll work through that, but they will not budge. It's a TxDOT policy. So they'll revamp and so they're going to allow that. The tough one's going to be when they finish where they're at, they're going to go in front of McDonald's and Stripes the same way as the other side. And then they'll jump across and do that one. And then they'll jump across and do in front of the other convenience store and where Angel's is, and do that block. They're trying to do those within the next 6 weeks or so and have all those complete. They were then going to be working on the center section with only one lane that way and one lane this way. Myself and Hector was in the meeting too as police chief, and Carlos as public works director. We convinced them to change that for the summer months, work on the outside lanes first and leave the 3 lanes in the center, because we can have 2 lanes going to the island and 1 lane going that way instead of all summer just 2 single lanes. So we were able to convince them, so that'll happen hopefully before the 4th, so that it'll offer some relief. So and I understand where they're coming from. This work was supposed to start in January, but it was delayed for several reasons that they had problems with. Week, and it's the whole entire COVID relief for restaurants, for them to be able to. All they have to do is show that their revenue was down from prior years, and it's pretty simple to do. And they have made contact with all of the restaurants, with all the people to show, hey. And it's twofold. Number one, you compare it to last year, but then there's also another standard you can use if you didn't have last year's, like it's a new business, which I know we have one that exists there, but they do have some monies that's available to them, and we've given that to them. We can't make them apply for it or how it fits them particularly, but they do have that option. I did talk to one gentleman today and was concerned, and he said other cities, when there's traffic problems, the cities help supplement. I've never heard of that, but because of the situation, I'm all ears, and I will be, or we will be, I won't say I, but staff will be trying to see if there's anything out there for that. Only problem that is it would have to come directly from the city, and you have to be careful with how you fund businesses. It have to be very specific windows to do that, but it is real. Like you said, it's a real effect. Those of us that navigate, and if you can see what people are doing, they're navigating into our city streets, and then a lot of people just going. We've also found all of a sudden 803 is very backed up in traffic because people are now going Henderson, Whipple, Stanford, and going that way instead of down 1575 and this way to Brownsville, or 1847 to Brownsville. They're going 803, and so it is causing some others, and we'll keep on top of it. I've authorized the police department to manage the light almost all the time on this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That really does help because they can they just manage it depending on the traffic flows from each way, because you don't have a lot of north and south traffic on a Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday. You have mainly this, And in the morning, you have it coming this way, and in the evening, you have it coming that way. So they will be doing it. It'll be some overtime. They're worried about that. We have used a lot of overtime with COVID vaccination clinics, but we've been reimbursed for that 100%. So I'll be bringing a budget amendment that shows, hey, we got this money in the bank already, and so we're going to need to give them, it covers that we've already spent, and be able to use our regular to help our citizens and businesses a little bit.
That's good. On the weekend, I've seen that line from Highway 100 and Paderes all the way back to 1575 and Highway 100. So it's pretty long.
Have we notified the media, especially Channel 5, they have that traffic report where we can notify them that, or at least notify, so that they can notify the people going to the island that there's other avenues because they're going to be delayed coming through Los Fresnos.
I think the text dot gentleman this morning said they've done that, but it was in passing comment, so I'll verify.
Like a
Yeah, because
510.
I listen to it every day, and I don't remember
Okay.
them mentioning any type of delays going through Los Fresnos.
Yeah, maybe like a 510 alternative. I know we want our traffic flowing through here, but you know,
Yeah,
like an alternative when they're coming from Harlingen to say detour 510
a lot of people
alternative.
keep going into the old 511, which is now 550, and go through 48. I hear a lot of people do that, just in general.
That we, our citizens, can flow more easily on the
It
weekend.
helps
Yeah.
our locals,
Our
number
locals.
one, and then I think it'll be better for our businesses, because when it's so congested, people just say, nah, I'm not doing it, and so it hurts our businesses. But if we could get that traffic down some, well, then you're okay to find your way into the bakery, find your way into the tire shop that's here, find your way into other businesses. So I think all that'll help. I'll be sure and get with them, Mr. Lopez. 510, that's all.
Mark, I just wanted to say that, this is part of growth. We're always complaining about the potholes on Highway 100, and traffic is always bad there anyways, but not as bad as right now, but it's still heavy. I think that once they finish, it'll help with the traffic flow. But, it's like any construction that we have. It's gonna mess things up for a while, but once it's completed, I'm sure everybody's gonna be happy and the outcome is gonna be good. We just have to put up with it, that's all there is to it. It's not our project, it's a state project, so. And as you say, the state's gonna do what the state's gonna do. And there's not much we can do about it. We can complain, but we're just gonna get ourselves upset. But we just need to deal with it somehow and move on, because in the end, it is gonna be better.
Yes, sir, and we'll try to just minimize, everything that we can up until then, through that time. Another piece to that, and it really, I want to thank Ray for bringing this up. I don't think about it a lot, but he said, when you're going down 100 and you're turning right into one of our city streets, if there's a car coming out of that street, it's hard, and sometimes you clip the curb because it's tight. Those of us that grew up here, there used to be a parking lane there, and there's only one lane each way, so there's a parking lane, and so when you turned, you had plenty of room to turn. Well, they did away with the parking lane, and now that lane is right up against the curb, and so you turn, and it's easy to hit. So part of what they're going to do is round those a little bit more, but when they do the official ADA sidewalk, it comes back a little bit, and so there'll be some concrete there in that turn, and so it'll allow that. The other thing they're going to do that is very, very good is they had the outside lane, the 12 feet, and they had the next lane 12, but they had the inside lane like 16 feet for the turning lane. Or they're going to make that 12 and put those extra 2 feet on the outside lanes. And so instead of a 12-foot lane on the outside, you'll have 14 feet. So that it gives you an extra 2 feet, as well as that radius from the curb being pulled back. So there's going to be, like you said, Polo, a lot of good when it's ended. We just need to do our best until then.
Yeah, and I think what's got me more concerned is that we just went through COVID, so a lot of these businesses are struggling financially, and then going through the construction is just like an extra burden to them. If it was just a regular construction, then I would understand, it's we'll deal with it, but being that we just went through the hardest year ever, I'm just concerned that these businesses don't fail, and if we can provide support, I think that would be very good. And thank you for researching some of the stuff that they're about financially taking care of them, if that's even able to happen.
The other thing I wanted to visit with you is the water conservation. We will probably have to go to a stage 2, what we call stage 2 water conservation. And what that would mean is, I think the way it says is north side of Highway 100, people water only on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and south side Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, or vice versa. And what triggers that is some low levels. And the key one right now for us is Amistad and Falcon reservoirs. Once they reach 35% combined capacity, our water conservation plan kicks in. And many cities have pretty much the same threshold. But there's a report coming out the 15th that may put us there. So I thought you need to be aware of that. It's an automatic thing. It's not y'all pass the policy, so we just have to implement the policy. There's other things is if our average daily water use is approaching 90% of our system capacity, well, we're not there. We're about 65, so we're really good. Our raw storage, where we store it, that level gets low, which we never have problems unless Irrigation District 6 has problem giving us water. It's never happened. They've had some things that they've worked on, but we've always filled up, and Carlos does a very good job of, some people let it run down and then take it all at the same time. He likes to just keep it a steady full, and that does better for us, because that way if something happens to one of their crossings or pumps at any time, we don't, oh man, I wish we'd had water already. He always keeps it pretty much capacity, so we're good there. And there's other things that go into play, but if it does, I will let y'all know at first. But if somebody asks you, well, why aren't we having to conserve water? It's all to do with right now at the dam. If we could get some rain, it would help the irrigation stop, because us cutting back doesn't affect, even all the cities cutting back doesn't affect as much as irrigation to the farmers, but they have also a conservation plan, and they'll just not get to water anymore, which is a whole nother economic impact to them that's sad, but that's where we live and depend on the Rio Grande River water. Any other comments? I put my comments on all of the other projects. Teacher appreciation, do you want to?
We visited 5 schools this morning between the hours of 8 a.m. to probably around 9, a little after 9. Basically just going around giving thanks to the principals and letting them know that we appreciate the staff the cafeteria, the maintenance, the teachers. Today, we attended with Mark, we had the police chief, assistant chief, the commander, Jackie. So I would invite, if any of you are interested in attending these, please let us know. And then we usually leave from here around 7:30. We got Thursday and Friday coming up, and then we got Tuesday. So if you wish to attend, we should be done by 10 a.m. Unless we do a little tour. We toured one of the elementary schools. I think it's a good way to go out there and talk to our communities.
Very well received. Very well received.
Yes, it was good. I was getting messages about the letter from teachers. They were sending me messages, and oh, thank you, and we love Los Fresnos. So it was a really good positive reaction that we got from people. Any motions to acknowledge managers' reports?
I move that we accept the manager's reports as
I
presented.
second.
Okay, motion has been made to acknowledge. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries to acknowledge city manager reports. Next up, acknowledgement of department head reports.
I usually don't comment unless y'all have a question, but I would like to comment because we're talking about businesses, and one of the things that's indicators of sales tax receipts, and if you'll see that on packet page 97, for the month of April, we received 17.34% up from last year. And for the year, we're 18.67% up. So concerned about COVID and all that, but businesses in general are doing good. That doesn't mean all of them, and especially some of those that are along where the construction is today, they're not. But hopefully we can, as a whole, continue growth, and I just think that's important indicator of our businesses as a whole.
And one of the reports recently that we went ahead and we were able to help change was the report for the COVID report that the county puts out. And so we were able to separate cases that were coming from detention centers and versus cases that were coming from the city. So that's kind of helping the city out a lot. I think over the weekend we only had 2 COVID cases for 3 straight days, so that was pretty low. And do I hear a motion?
I so move.
I second it.
Okay, motion has been made to acknowledge department head reports. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries to acknowledge of department head reports. At this time, it is currently 7:34, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good night.